Welcome to another episode of Should You Take That Case with your host, Lisa Wade, your friendly neighborhood legal nurse consultant, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants, and creator of our private LinkedIn community, the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That is where we get all of our stellar attorney guests. The goal of our show is to be a resource for legal professionals who pursue medical cases by sharing their experience and insights as defense or as plaintiff attorneys. You can catch prior episodes at www.wadenurseconsultants.com/blog, on LinkedIn and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Now here's the host of Should You Take That Case, Lisa Wade.
Hey there, folks. Welcome to a brand new episode of Should You Take That Case. Thank you for coming, and a wonderful medical Monday to you. That's what we call Mondays here on Should You Take That Case, Medical Record Monday. And thanks for coming. I am your host, Lisa Wade, legal nurse consultant, medical record expert, and owner of Wade Nurse Consultants. But I am also the creator of a little group, the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. You know, that's where we get all of our attorney guests. They are all members. And we use this opportunity to get to know one another. And we're going to do that today with Brett.j.Kaminsky from Pennsylvania. But before we bring Brett out, we just want to scoot over to the comment section, see if anybody is visiting us live today. Scoot on over there and put an A into that comment section if you're an attorney, a P if you're a paralegal, and an LNC if you're another legal nurse consultant like me. But put a W if you are part of a wonderful group I enjoy, Women Owned Law. It is a groundbreaking group connecting and advancing women legal entrepreneurs, but with the primary mission of empowering women lawyers to achieve success in the business of law. And I need you to scoot over to womenownedlaw.org. Take a peek, see if that is sounding like a really good organization to you. If you're interested, scoot on over and find out more about women-owned law. And as I said, if you're catching us live today, but even if you're catching us on the replay, we want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy days to be with us. But now it's time to introduce our guest for today. Brett Kaminsky is a principal at Friedman, Schuman, who focuses on medical malpractice, personal injury, crime victims, and product liability litigation. As a former medical defense attorney, Brett has unique and invaluable insight from his experience on the other side, which helps him in effectively advocating for his clients. Brett has received designation from the National Trial Lawyers as a top 40 under 40. And let's bring him out. Hey, Brett, welcome.
Hey, Lisa, thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm well today. The heat has broken out here. So for you too, because I'm in Pennsylvania too.
That's right.
Yay. Right. Well, thank goodness. So we're going to dive into all you want to tell us about medical records and how you manage them. But first, we want to hear more about you. What led you into this practice of law? What led you to be a lawyer? Tell us as much or as little as you want to share.
Sure. So, I guess the reason why I went into law is because I wanted to do my best to highlight my strengths. And much of what we do as lawyers is tell a story and try to highlight different areas of that story for other people, whether it be defense attorneys, a jury, a judge, whomever might be listening. I was fortunate enough to grow up around a lot of doctors and some really awesome doctors, and I have friends that are in the medical field, and I was always kind of drawn to the medical field, not necessarily in going to medical school or nursing school or anything like that, but to the medical field itself. So while I was in law school, I was fortunate enough to get an awesome internship with the Philadelphia firm that deals with catastrophic litigation and medical malpractice. Then in law school, I took a class called medical malpractice with one of the best defense attorneys that I've ever seen. And for whatever reason, he took a shot and hired me out of that class. So I started off defending hospitals, defending doctors, and other medical personnel. And after about 3.5 years, I saw an opportunity to switch sides and really, try to help people that are in their most vulnerable position. What I tell a lot of my clients is doctors, nurses, medicine is not perfect. But when a doctor, nurse, or medical provider has a bad day, they go home and they have a glass of wine or a beer with their families. When our clients go home, their life is turned upside down. This literally impacts everything that they did, or ever will be able to do. So when I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to switch sides and represent that side of the aisle, so to speak, I took it, and I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am. But more than that, I'm really fortunate to work with some awesome people, and it's been great.
Oh, excellent. You've had an interesting journey,
Sure.
experiencing things from both sides.
Sure.
Well, how about you talk to the folks about what factors into deciding if you should take a case when it comes your way? Sometimes it's not a case. Sometimes maybe, like you said, sometimes people do things inappropriately, but sometimes it's nobody's fault. What do you do when those kinds of things come up?
Yeah, so I'd say one of the toughest parts of the job is really having that conversation with the client. Obviously, our world is inherently litigious. Okay, so obviously when people are calling us, they think that there was a wrongdoing. And a lot of times it's a catch-22, right? Because a lot of our clients don't want something to have been done wrong. In other words, they don't want there to be malpractice because they have this guilt for taking their loved ones or their spouses or whatever the case may be to hospital A, B, or C, or seeing Dr. X, Y, and Z. So sometimes people just want to be heard and they want to know what we as attorneys think. Other times people insist that there was negligence. And to your point, doctors and medicine is an imperfect science. Things happen. Not every baby is born perfectly. Not every surgery goes perfectly. Obviously you've been in this field for a long time too, so you know how that goes. But, there are multiple factors that we look at when determining whether to take a case. Obviously, as you kind of alluded to, look, this is a business. Is this a case that will help? Are we as attorneys in a position to help those in need? Now, because I'm sitting on this podcast and you're asking me individually, I'm going to go over how I determine whether to take a case. So the first thing that I look at is, can I be helpful to this client, right? One of the first attorneys that I worked for told me something that I tell all of my clients: facts make cases, lawyers add or detract value. And, I took that to heart, right? It's our clients that are dealing with this horror or this catastrophic injury, especially when we're talking about medical malpractice. What can I do to add value? Is it an area that I'm comfortable in? Is it an area that I believe in? Especially in today's day and age, and I know that you have viewers outside of Pennsylvania, but just to give Philadelphia for an example, you're looking at a few years with these clients, 2, 3, 4, sometimes even more years than that. So do I have a relationship with this client that they are going to trust me, and am I going to be able to trust them? Okay. Again, we talk about adding value. How does a lawyer add value? Well, we add value by working with good experts, by having a good team, by taking a good deposition, by putting our best strategical foot forward, because in our world, we're not talking about locking somebody up. We're not talking about taking a medical license away. Most of the time, we're not talking about taking food off of a doctor's table. We are talking about monetary compensation in response to something horrible that an individual has been through. So I need to make sure personally that I have that relationship with the client moving forward. The other thing is, and I know that you're a big proponent of mental and emotional health. Are the individuals calling me going to be able to withstand and understand the rigors of litigation? Litigation is not fun for everybody, okay? Especially when it's your name at the top of that caption and somebody's looking at your life through a microscope. They're looking at, records from your pediatrician, which was 25 years ago. The mental and emotional toll that it takes on somebody is no joke. And I would say 9 times out of 10 with my clients, I'm also making a recommendation for them to seek mental and emotional health, because without that, they have nothing. And I feel very strongly about that, because even though I'm on my phone 24/7 and happy to answer, I'm not a mental health therapist. I might play one, during the day a lot of times, but it's very important that they understand that. So I bring that up because there are certain people that need to understand what litigation means, and not just how much is my case worth, how long is it going to take, but what am I going to endure to get from A to Z? So these are all things that I look at. The other thing that I personally look at is, do I believe in the case? There's medical malpractice and medical negligence every day. Unfortunately, it's only a problem when it's a problem. And that might sound ridiculous to a lot of people, but what I mean by that is a doctor might screw up and it might get caught immediately and rectified. Okay. There are some cases that morally or ethically, I just might not believe in for whatever reason. If I am not going to serve as the best advocate for that client, I'm not going to take the case. Now, I know I'm speaking a lot, so please feel free to cut me off, but a business decision, a lot of attorneys will evaluate cases based on valuation only. And I certainly get that this is a business, but we as attorneys are also in a unique position to help people that can't always help themselves, or that haven't always been given the opportunity to just have somebody listen to them. So many of our clients, whether I take the case or whether I don't, just want to be heard. And again, and Lisa, you and I have worked together in the past. So, a vast majority of our clients would not become our clients if a doctor or medical provider just said, hey, I'm sorry, here's what went wrong, here's what I'm going to do to make it right. So many times these clients call and they tell these horror stories. And my first response is, look, I'm sorry for what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And once they've established that connection and that somebody hears them, the relationship can be built from there. So that's a long way of saying there's multiple ways that we evaluate cases as far as whether to take them. And it's not just financial, it's not just personal. There's multiple different aspects when taking a case because of the inherent, time that cases take, and because of the cost in these cases, and because of the mental and emotional toll that it takes on our clients.
Well, it certainly you sound like a good listener, and that you're very thoughtful when considering whether it is the case or not a case. So that's good.
And you have to be, so much of what we do in our field is listening. And also that plays into taking on the case. When I take a case and I'm doing a deposition or I'm reviewing the medical records, you have to review everything. You have to listen to everything. The medical records don't always tell the full story. Sometimes the clients don't even know the full story. Sometimes the story from the clients vastly differs from what's in the medical records. The most important thing that we can do as attorneys in our world, right, is listening. Because as soon as we start talking over the clients or correcting them, we could miss very, very key details that could add value to the case, or otherwise detract value to the case that makes it not a case at all, or something that you need to explain to the client so that they can explain it, so that they can understand why the case might not be worth what they believe it is, or what they've Googled, or what they've seen, on TV.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You sound, like I said, you're very thoughtful, you're very considerate, and you take time to make that decision and talk to people. All good things.
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned the medical records. Well, it's time to talk about them a little bit. Now, when they start rolling in, do you have a routine or a process for completing those medical case screenings or record reviews?
So keyword there is when they roll in. I think anybody that has ever dealt with record providers understands that that there's a whole strategy in and of itself for getting those records, which we can get into later if you want. But, again, how do I do things? So my policy is best I can, because records come in on a rolling basis, right? You might request 10 providers from client X, and they're not all coming in at once. But client X is waiting by the phone with bated breath to hear what you think. So what I try to do is when I get the medical records, I do my absolute best, assuming that my, wife and son are okay with it. I do my absolute best to try to review the records myself within 72 hours. Okay. I take as many notes. Now, when the records are 10,000 pages, you do what you can, because you want to let these clients know, hey, I've got the records. Here's where we are and here's where we're going. So as much as I can, I try to review them within 72 hours, not so I can write my opening and closing statement, but so that I can have an educated conversation with the clients and know whether we're going to send it to the next point. So many people, and I know that you've gone over this on your podcast before, what is medical malpractice? Is it a case because Brett Kaminsky thinks it's a case? Well, no, not really. There's more to it, right? I need to prove a deviation in the standard of care, which essentially means if you have 100 medical providers in a room, yours does something different. They deviate from the norm. Mm-hmm. Then I need to prove that deviation caused damages. So there's really a 3-prong approach to that. But just because Brett Kaminsky Esquire might like you or might like your case, if I don't have an expert, especially in Pennsylvania, that's going to support it, it means nothing. So when I review the case in that 72 hours, I'm making the determination, and we spoke about this, before we launched the podcast, what experts do I need? What specialty do I need? What type of expert do I need? Do I need somebody who's in a teaching position, who's in a research position, who's at an Ivy League hospital, who's out in the West Coast, who's looking at something that we might never see? For example, a failure to diagnose tuberculosis meningitis. Okay, just an example. Not super common, thank God, in our country. I need to find an expert that has treated patients with that horrible disease. Okay, so how do I go about finding them? Within those 72 hours, again, to go back to it, I'm looking for, do I think there's something here? Do I think that it's worth looking at an expert? Do I need to have an educated conversation with my client saying, hey, there's something different about the story that you told me versus the medical records. Let's see if we can fill in the gaps. Do I need to say, hey, you need to go see Dr. X, Y, and Z because I really don't think that your care is over? Or do I need to say, okay, you've, God forbid, been diagnosed with cancer. I think you should get a second opinion, and here's why, and here's how I think that can help. So those 72 hours, again, as I said, I'm not writing everything. I'm not able to say definitively whether it's a case or not, but when you've looked at the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands of pages of medical records that certainly you have and that I've looked at this point, you can kind of get a feel for what you're looking at, or even more importantly, sometimes what you need to find to connect those dots.
Mm-hmm. I love it, because as a legal nurse consultant, I love it when that attorney reads those records first, because right. They can send me, on a hunt for breadcrumbs to find exactly what you need. You send me with a little direction, and it is appreciated.
And also, look, experts are practicing doctors, nurses, PAs. If I can give that medical personnel a game plan, okay, saying, Dr. X, here's what I have. I've separated into admission, triage, surgery, op note. I'm not going to highlight anything because I don't want to tell you where to look. But if you go to page 45, that's when the op note starts. That saves them time. That saves me time. And equally as importantly, that saves our clients money in the long run. Because if we're able to take that case and I've got a $30,000 bill from Dr. X, my client's going to say, hey, Brett, why did it take him or her so long? And I need to be able to account for that. Because at the end of the day, clients are coming to one person. They're not coming to Dr. X. They're not coming to legal nurse consultant Lisa Wade. They're coming to me, good, bad, or indifferent.
All right.
I need to make sure that I'm on top of that stuff.
Excellent. Now, you were talking a little bit about your frustrations, but I want to know specifically, what are your biggest pet peeves, biggest frustrations when you're dealing with medical records?
I'm trying to give a political answer because I've been on both sides of these. And I know that, the record providers, it's kind of a thankless job where everybody's banging on them for where are my records. But, my issues are, I have multiple issues with the process itself, but it really starts with, why do you need all of this paperwork? What can I give you to help you help me? All right. What information? So they need a HIPAA, they need, all types of authorizations. But once they have that, how long does it take for them to find what I need? Many times, and I know that you've been through this also, you'll request a record, you'll have to follow up again, and then again and again, and you'll call and you'll text and you'll email and you'll send smoke signals, and eventually they'll send you something. And then 6 months down the line in litigation, you'll get the same record, but it has 50 more pages, and those 50 pages are exactly what you needed on day one to make the case. So the frustration really stems from not getting the clients the answers that they want. They don't necessarily, and understandably so, but they don't necessarily get why it takes us 120 days sometimes to get their records. They think, well, it's my records. Why shouldn't I be able to get them immediately? And the reality is, again, to credit these record providers and, hospital records departments, it's not just that they can snap their fingers and send everything out. But when you're sending requests 2, 3, and 4, or have to file a records complaint, which we've had to do, where you're literally filing a lawsuit against the hospital to get those records in Pennsylvania, it's a lot. And all of that time, again, to lead it back to the client, fortunately for us, we have other cases to work on. So when a record doesn't come in 30 days, it's not like I'm holding my breath, but our clients are, right? This is their whole life, and they're waiting for that call. What does Brett Kaminsky or what does my attorney think of my case? So the most frustrating part from the outset is how long it takes to get records. Then when you get them, there's a whole new level of frustration. Well, are they readable? Okay. Are there copies of copies? Is it duplicative records? How much am I getting billed? I've gotten bills for medical records of over $10,000. Okay. Which is all kinds of problems. Now, if a client requested that and they paid that money, they wouldn't get that money back ever. They don't know what they don't know. They don't know that we can fight that and try to reduce that significantly. And again, I'm not blaming anybody. This is just a product of the system, but there's problems from A to Z. And, then when you're looking at the records, as I said, does it have everything? Can I tell that something is clear? If I know that my patient went in for an operation on January 1st and there's no op note, I know that something is missing. Where are the nurse's notes? Then sometimes you get records which will have version 1 of 2, version 1 of 3, where are all the versions? Where are the edits? What is missing? And why is there 50 of the same pages in these records that you've just charged me for? So again, this is an issue, or these are issues that everybody in our field deals with. I'm sure the defense folks deal with it too, because they're trying to get the certified records also. So it's not just a Brett Kaminsky problem. It is just a problem that has a trickle-down effect to everybody involved in the case.
I see how that could be frustrating, waiting for records and finding out if they're complete or not. That is, I can see where you're coming from.
Or you get like a no record statement from somebody that was at, they get a bill, they paid their hospital bill, but now you've got no records, or now I've got to, Dr. A doesn't have the records. I have to go to the hospital. So then I have to send another request. And the hospital says you've got to go to the practice group. It's like, everybody's pointing fingers, and I'm just trying to answer this client's question. That's it.
I got you. Well, you have been full of good information, good experiences. And I just want to know, is there anything that's missing? Any other advice that you have for newbie or even veterans attorneys handling these types of medical cases?
I mean, I'll give the same advice that was given to me, because I think I got, great advice to begin with. Be yourself. Take cases only that you believe in. I've been fortunate enough to work with or learn from a lot of amazing lawyers. I'm not them. I'm never going to be them. If I try to be them, it's not authentic for a number of reasons. And juries, defense attorneys, even our clients can see through that right away. If I'm trying to be somebody that I'm not, they're going to notice. And if they don't, the defense side will. And if they don't, the jury will. And if they don't, the judge will. So be authentic, take cases that work for you, but see how you can add value. But most importantly, and I tell this to everybody, remember that there's somebody on the other side of that phone or on that keyboard. And, clients want to call 24/7 because they're anxious or they're nervous. And it's very easy to get frustrated or to say, hey, I'm having dinner with my family or whatever the case may be. Again, this is their life. This is their world. So and they have chosen us to help them, right? At the end of the day, we work for them. When they sign that contingency fee agreement, they're signing on to allow us the honor or privilege of representing them. So when they're calling over and over again, or when they're asking questions that maybe we don't necessarily have time to always respond right away, I try to tell people, just remember what you would want the response to be for your family or loved ones, or if it was, God forbid, you. The bond between lawyers and clients is truly a very real one. And especially in medical malpractice, what I've found, and you can jump in if you disagree, but a lot of our clients, there's this inherent trust in the medical field, right? Doctors have been through so much school. I'm trusting them with my life. I don't know what this means, but if he or she says it, I'm going to take it as gold. They've broken that trust with these doctors, right? The doctors or medical providers have betrayed them somehow, whether it's with malpractice or with saying something wrong or a misdiagnosis or delay in diagnosis. So you almost have to rebuild that individual's trust. And unfortunately, they've tagged you. Sometimes, unfortunately, they've tagged you. So they have this inherent distrust because of the experience that they've been through, whether it's with the medical field or when they were 5 years old. We don't know. So we have to be able to try to understand why they're asking these questions or why they're calling 5 times. What I tell my clients is I would rather somebody be upset because I tell them too much about their case than mad at me for not telling them enough. Again, communication, especially in today's day and age, communication with these clients is everything. And sometimes just saying, hey, I get it. Or, hey, you have every right to be mad. Or, hey, I'm just calling you. I don't have good news. I don't have bad news. I'm just letting you know I'm working on it. Or, with my clients, for example, for my wrongful death clients, I have my team calendar the date of death for all of those clients. And I reach out to their families personally, either a text or a call or an email on that day, just to say, hey, just letting you know I'm thinking about you. I know it's a rough day, thinking about you. If you need anything, here I am. And those little things, they really add up in rebuilding the trust for these clients. And when you get a good result for a client and when you have that relationship with the client and they send you a picture of their loved ones, 3-4 years down the road, or they send you a picture, of the new house that they had to get because the last one wasn't, compliant with their needs, it's pretty freaking cool. And we are, again, in a unique position to help ourselves, our firm, our family, and also help people that might not have had the same opportunities or upbringing that we have. And by being that advocate for that person, you have a responsibility to that person and their family. So that was a long-winded answer of what I would tell somebody. I'd probably say it a little bit more succinctly. But, that's kind of the general advice that I try to give, the younger associates that we have at our firm or that have interned for me or, that I've worked with.
Well, it's a podcast. Talking's good. That's what we're here for. Exactly.
Yeah, you can always cut that out if it's too long.
No worries. Yeah. Well, you are given wonderful insights, knowledge, experience, and we're glad you're here sharing. But now is the time when it's time for a little Q&A. Are you ready for some questions?
I think so.
All right. Well, folks, while you're getting your questions together for Brett and getting ready to put them into the comment section, it's time for a teeny weeny sponsor break. That's what we call it here. And I'll tell you a little bit about Wade Nurse Consultants and what we do here. But it's just going to take a minute. Then we'll be right back to Brett. All right. Now, everyone is not always completely clear about what legal nurse consultants do, so we'll make it clear today. At Wade Nurse Consultants, it's all about research, review, and roadmaps. When we review medical records, we summarize and translate that info into normal human language, easily understood by judges and juries. When we research, we complete medical literature searches regarding topics attorneys may not be familiar with. And we also locate those experts needed to support an attorney's case. And when we create roadmaps, we create them in the form of life care plans. These are roadmaps that are used for injured clients by detailing their future medical needs over their lifetimes, including estimated costs of that care. To recap, legal nurse consultants at Wade Nurse Consultants. For us, it's all about review, research, and roadmaps. And now, schedule a 15-minute medical case strategy call by clicking the calendar link that you'll find in the description box of this YouTube channel so we can chat. And now, let's get back to Brett. All right, Brett, it is time for your Q&A. Let's take a look and see, do we have any questions yet? No. We don't have a room, but it happens.
All good.
It happens.
Because I gave so much information.
You did.
That's
You gave full information. Nobody has any questions. But what I'll do is I will put your contact information in the description box of this YouTube channel, and people can reach out to you when they have questions. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds awesome.
Excellent. So I don't see any questions, but I have one question for you, Brett. Can we do this again?
Ready when you are. You let me know. And just, Lisa, just to piggyback, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to use legal nurse consultants and work with you for a number of years. What you do is, we talk about added value. What you do is added value. Laying out a game plan for us, a roadmap, getting some of the best experts for us. That is added value. And I'm very grateful for our friendship personally and professionally. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for coming.
Yes.
And I think we're going to wind up. We're closing. But as we close up this session of Should You Take That Case, let me remind everybody to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. And tune in next week, Monday, 5:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a brand new episode of Should You Take That Case? And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching and listening to another episode of Should You Take That Case with your host, Lisa Wade, your friendly neighborhood legal nurse consultant, owner of Wade Nurse Consultants, and creator of our private LinkedIn community, the Attorney Medical Record Resource Group. That is where we get all of our stellar attorney guests. The goal of our show is to be a resource for legal professionals who pursue medical cases by sharing their experiences and insights as defense or as plaintiff attorneys. You can catch prior episodes at www.wadenurseconsultants.com/blog, on LinkedIn, and on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel and sharing this show with others.